city budget, and also the 2013-14 gross receipts utility tax. Drew, do we have to vote on the utility tax tonight?
I think that's just
Or
part
is
of
it just part of the regular budget and we'll do it next Monday? Or when?
No, I guess we need to do it tonight.
Within what's that?
Sheila's yelling at me. We have to do it tonight.
Okay. And which bill is that, clerk? It's not a bill? So at this... Drew, would you give me a motion that we could ask for, please? At this point in time, we'll entertain a motion to keep our 2013-2014 gross utilities
52.
tax
That's not
receipts the same.
So moved.
Well, I guess so.
Second.
It's been moved. I don't see it in there, Drew. So we have a motion and a second. Who was the second? Was that Carrie? Thank you, ma'am. All right. Any discussion, Drew or Sheila?
We're in favor of it.
Okay. Anyone opposed? Okay. All right. Do you want to give us a quick lowdown on exactly what that is, Drew?
It is the tax on utilities, and it's set at 7%.
Okay.
Shaking head, yes.
And the motion
It
is
is
to
the
leave it
maximum that
same?
we could. There isn't. You can't raise this one. It's at the maximum level authorized by prior to Hancock.
Okay. And the motion to, and there's a motion on the floor to leave it the same. Discussion by council. Seeing none, I feel you're ready to vote. There's no debate, I'm assuming. Roll call, please.
Branch,
Aye.
Bray,
Aye.
Carroll,
Aye.
Graham,
Aye.
Henry,
Aye.
Hussey,
Aye.
Mahalovich,
Aye.
Prather,
Aye.
Scrivener.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we'll move into number 7, which is minutes and reports filed here at City Hall. If you would like to be on one of our boards or commissions, you can contact Gail Strope, our HR director, or you can go to jeffcitymo.org and fill in an application there. Next, we'll go into council committee reports. First, Ms. Carrie Carroll, the admin committee. Carrie.
Thank you. Administration Committee had a special meeting last Wednesday morning to discuss the floating holidays, which has moved forward to bills introduced tonight. Our next scheduled meeting is Wednesday, August 28th, but pending what's on that agenda, we may cancel that if there's not enough items to have on there. So if that's the case, Gail will send out a notice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, the Finance Committee. Mr. Sean Schulte could not be here tonight, and filling in for him is Vice Chair Ralph Bray.
I don't have a report, but I can make an announcement that the next Finance Committee meeting will be next Tuesday at 7:30 across the hall.
All right, thank you, Ralph. Next, we'll move into Public Safety, which is chaired by Rick Prather.
Yeah, no report since the last meeting, and our next meeting will be Thursday, August 29th across hall after the Brown Bagel meeting.
All right, thank you, Rick. Moving on, Public Works and Planning, Mr. Bob Scrivener.
Mr. Mayor, we have not met since our last report. Our next meeting is scheduled for this Thursday, August the 22nd at 7:30 a.m. across the hall. We have several items on a consent agenda. Old business, we will be talking about the Jefferson City Hangar Association ground lease renewal again, revision to a forestry article in the city code. New business, there will be a fluoride discussion by Gilbert Cole, who is the general manager of the water company in town. Capitol Mall Development Agreement, Stone Ridge Village TDD expansion, Cole County Juvenile Officer Parking, and Frog Hollow Road project update with a subheading there, Jefferson City School District Development Agreement, and a contract amendment with Barton West for Frog Hollow Greenway Bridge. And we've got some other items, but I think that's enough.
All right,
big agenda this time.
Looks like Matt and his staff have been busy behind the scenes. Okay, next we have, are there any liaison reports to my right? Any liaison reports to my left? Mr. Bray.
Actually, I should also report that an announcement that the next Budget Committee will meet next Monday at 5:30.
All right, thank you, Ralph. Appreciate that. Okay, next we'll move into number 9, appointments by the mayor. At this point in time, we'll entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Always voice, right, Drew? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Appreciate all the new people serving on our boards and commissions. It obviously helps our city run a lot better. Next, at this point in time, underneath number 10, we'll entertain a motion to amend our agenda to have Missy Bono with the Chamber give us an update on a particular project. Is there a motion to do so?
Second.
It's been moved by Bob and seconded by Mr. Henry. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Missy, welcome. Thanks for being here. I know we've been at this for a little while over the last couple of weeks, talked about it in our pre-meeting. I think you have some good news for our community.
We have
Welcome
been
and thank you
working
for
on
being
it
here.
very diligently, and thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. My name is Missy Bono, and I'm Director of Economic Development for the Jefferson City Area Chamber of Commerce. And the Chamber has been working, like the Mayor said, with a business attraction project since April, actually. This company is based in Bloomington, Illinois, and they will produce bags for a local dog food manufacturer that's located in our region. They propose to bring raw material in by rail. They will produce the bag. They will ship the bag to a third-party printer to have it printed and laminated. And then the printer will ship the bag back to this company, who will then cut and perforate the bag. And then the company will then ship the bag to the dog food producer, who will fill the bag and with product and then distribute. So it's quite a lot of shipping and a lot of moving of this particular product. But originally, when the company first indicated that they were interested in Jefferson City, they were really interested in our 50,000 square foot spec building that we have in the business, the Partnership Business Park. And quickly they determined that there were two things that they really needed that the spec building was not able to provide. And that was, number one, they really needed a rail serve site. And number two, the building just really wasn't configured to produce the type of product that they needed to produce. And so we proposed to them a 25-acre parcel that the Chamber does own that's just west of Alpla, and it sits on the corner of Sturtzer Road and Algoa Road. And so the Chamber owns 25 acres right there at the corner, but again, the company didn't need the full 25 acres, so we carved off approximately 9.16 acres for the company to purchase. The company would construct a 30 to 40,000 square foot facility with plans to expand in the future, and the building would be constructed by a local contractor and financed locally as well. They would be investing at least $3 million in real and personal property, and again, they're pretty confident that they would be adding more investment in the next 3 years. They would create 20 jobs to start. And again, they feel confident that they would actually create more jobs than 20, but again, just being very conservative with their numbers, 20 is what they would like to commit to. Over a 3-year period, they would create 20 jobs to start. It would be a 24/7 operation, so it would be 3 shifts per day, and they will be hiring very high-skilled individuals. They would be paying an hourly wage of $17.50 to $22.50 an hour, and the average wage for Cole County is $18.19. And so they would be paying right up there with the average wage for Cole County. So they have been on a fast track in the business attraction and economic development world. This has been just a blazing project, and the mayor can attest to like I said, when they first contacted us in April, we've been working pretty fast and furiously on this project. So I will say that the Chamber Board has a meeting on August 27th where we'll be reviewing the sale and land contract at that time. But I did just want to come tonight and give you a project overview, Mr. Mayor, and if anybody has any questions for me, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Any questions for Missy? Ralph?
Missy, you said they might expand. Would they do that working with their present customer in the region, or would they go beyond that customer base?
Actually, there are several customers that they supply to in this region. The dog food manufacturer is just one, and they will be supplying to other people in the state of Missouri as well.
Mr. Carlos?
Missy, are they requiring any type of special assistance from the city, any type of tax breaks or anything like that from the city of Jefferson to bring this company here?
The site that they are looking at is in an enhanced enterprise zone, and that is an area where the city actually acted several years ago with an ordinance to provide benefits to companies that locate in the enhanced enterprise zone. And the benefits include a 10-year abatement on just real property. So on just the building, they would receive a 50% tax abatement for a 10-year period. So we are assuming that that will be approximately $140,000 total for a 10-year period. So again, the tax abatement, because they will be locating in the enhanced enterprise zone, it's a 10-year tax abatement, 50% for just real property.
Anyone else to my left? Any comments or questions? Bob?
If I understand that correctly, Missy, currently there's just land there now, so that the tax on the land is considerably less than the tax will be on the land once, or on the land and building once a building's bought or built. So we'll abate 50%, but that 50% will still mean we'll be getting an increase. The county and the school district and all taxing entities will be receiving, or that get property tax will be receiving an increase over this 10-year period, even though they're abating half of that increase,
Correct.
so to speak.
You're absolutely right. This is a greenfield site currently, and so the tax revenue on that greenfield site is very, very small. And so schools, city, county will all be receiving, again, that $140,000 over a 10-year period coming in because of this project.
And then there is no abatement on personal property, so the equipment that they put into that facility to manufacture these bags will be taxed at the full rate,
Correct.
plus the whatever economic value that you get from having 20 new jobs in the community.
Any other questions for our guest? Thank you for all your work behind the scenes. And I know a lot of times at groundbreakings we say these things aren't easy. Well, we know full well that in these trying times that they are tough to get these kind of deals together. I'm assuming that this would be a great opportunity for some of our misplaced employees with R.R. Donnelly.
Absolutely. You know, we have wonderful skilled workers in Jefferson City, and although, you know, this is just 20 jobs to start, I think we have potential to grow this company and help the R.R. Donnelly employees that have been displaced.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Missy,
Thank
for being
you.
here. Appreciate you taking the time. I also want to reach out and thank Joe Shepers of the Chamber for being here also tonight. Okay, next we have announcements by mayor, council, and staff. I think Mr. Carlos has a upcoming event along with Kerry that he wants to mention.
Yes,
Carlos.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to remind the community about on Saturday, August the 24th, from 9 a.m. to 11 at the Capital West Christian Church, which is located at 1315 Fairgrounds Road. It's formerly the Great Central Lumber Company. There will be a 4th Ward Town Hall meeting. We're asking everyone to please come out. If you have any concerns that you would like to bring out, please bring those concerns, and we just love to hear from the public. Thank you.
All right. Anything to add, Kerry? All right. Thank you, Carlos. Any other comments under number 11 as far as announcements? Seeing none, I have one announcement. I talked to Drew about this earlier. Per the city charter, it's my job once a year to give an evaluation of our city administrator. That time has come again. I'm asking you as the council to come up with your comments, ideas, on exactly the kind of job you think Nathan's done over the last year, and I will be meeting with you guys individually. Laura will be setting those up here in the next couple weeks, but it's a good time to look at where we're at as a community and hopefully move things forward. Next we have, yes sir, Carlos.
Is there
I'm
some
sorry.
type of format that we're looking at to judge him on, or we just talking, just, how's this format going to look, I guess?
I think what I'm actually going to do this go around is give you the form that Gail gives me. And that way, when we sit down, we'll be looking at the exact same goals and objectives of last year and what you may want as a councilman, for instance, those to be in the future. I think it's a good, well-rounded way to go about it.
Thank you, Mr.
Any other comments? Thank you, sir. Under number 11. All right, seeing none, number 12. I have signed up here Mr. Phil Califf. Phil, good evening. Thank you for being here.
Good evening. Mayor, council people, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for what you do for the city. Just a short concern I have. My name is Phil Califf. I live at 312 Red Wing Drive here in Jeff City. I also own the spot uptown in Jeff City. I would like to address the council tonight on the pending bill number 2013-044, I think is what it is, the Sidewalk Cafe. I guess my question is why this bill, which is requiring proof of insurance and the amount determined by the city, and the purchase of a permit to use the sidewalk, is only being directed to the restaurant industry. A large majority of the merchants use the sidewalk on a daily basis to display their products with the hope of increasing their sales. More sales equals more tax revenue to the city. However, they're not required to purchase any insurance or to provide any insurance information to the city, nor are they required to purchase a permit, to my knowledge, for such use of the sidewalks. If this is truly is a concern for the city, I suggest we all required to play by the same rules. I think we're all in agreement that we must need to keep our business districts clean, and that a proposal set forth in this bill, which is addressing these issues, will hopefully go a long way to accomplish that use. Speaking for a few people downtown, we agree that the city needs to be clean. We don't have a problem with trash cans and coming up with plans to keep the city clean, but we have some questions about why the restaurant is just picked out for this insurance. If it isn't a liability issue for the city, I think the liability is everywhere. So based on that, I thank you for your time, and thank you for supporting the city and giving your time for the city. Thank you. Thank you.
Phil, thanks for being here. Any questions of our guest or questions of staff? Mr. Califf, I think Councilman Scrivener has a question.
Phil, thank you for
Yes, sir.
coming and speaking on behalf of yourself and others downtown. I guess I do have a question, because this insurance thing has been kicked around a lot, and there's been a lot of discussion about it. Would you mind sharing with us what you think is an adequate amount?
Oh, we're insured for $1 million. I believe that it's not that you're requiring us to provide insurance. I'm asking if you're asking our industry to provide insurance, isn't the same liability there with sidewalk sales and people up and down, sitting on city sidewalks, or sitting on city benches that are provided by the city to eat? I mean, liability is liability. I do agree that we need to be insured. Okay. And, you know, to answer that, I'm not trying to evade the insurance issue, okay? If we're going to require it from one business entity, I think that if the liability is there in the district, I think it should be required by all of us.
You know, what you said about having $1 million, that's kind of the word that we got, that's pretty much a general practice.
Sure.
And so, anyway, thank you.
And that's what we have.
Point's well
Okay.
made.
Phil, thank you. Tell Eva I said hi. I will, thank you, Mayor. Thanks. All right, next on our agenda, I have Mr. Arthur Brown.
Mr. Mayor, I yield my time back to the floor.
Okay. Thank you, Arthur. Next we have, going into number 13, the consent agenda. At this point in time, we'll entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Branch,
Aye.
Bray,
Aye.
Carroll,
Aye.
Graham,
Aye.
Henry,
Aye.
Hussey,
Aye.
Mahalovich,
Aye.
Prather,
Aye.
Scrivener.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. No bills tonight under $50,000. Moving on to number 15, bills introduced. We'll have first reading of 2013-53.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a grant agreement with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for public transit operating assistance.
Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the clerk indicated, this is a grant agreement for transit through MoDOT. It's administered through MoDOT. The dollar amount, it's a small grant for state operating assistance, but it's $4,429 for this next state calendar year. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Matt on that bill? Seeing none, we'll move into first reading of 2013-54.
An ordinance amending Chapter 7, Boards and Commissions, Article 16, Cultural Arts Commission, subsection 7-603, Members, subparagraph D of the Code of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, is amended pertaining to residency requirements of members.
Gail.
Thank you, Mayor. This ordinance makes a slight revision to the membership of the Cultural Arts Commission. Currently, the commission has a membership of 11 members and requires at least nine of those members to reside within the city limits. The commission has a couple of openings and then a number of interested individuals who live just outside the city limits. So the commission has asked that the membership number of 11 remain the same, but it be revised that at least 8 have to live within the city limits. This would allow for one additional person to live outside the city limits and be a member of the Cultural Arts Commission.
Gail, I'm sorry, I don't remember. Is there a radius or just anywhere outside the city limits?
It's anywhere outside of the city limits,
Okay.
I believe.
All right, any questions of staff? Bob?
I'm not really sure how I feel about this at this point, but I do have a question. It seems as though over the last 2 or 3 years we've had come before us requests to move the membership requirements of various boards and commissions to include people outside the city. And I guess I understood it when we were talking about the electrical board, because that's kind of a limited, I mean, it's a specialized profession. But what is the, are we having that hard a time finding people within the city to serve on these boards and commissions, or is there just someone that lives outside the city limits that we favor and want to have an opportunity for them to be on the board? Why is it that we have to look outside the city all the time to have people serve on our boards and commissions? I mean, this is at least the third time this has come up.
I know for this case, there is not one specific person that they're looking to change this ordinance in order to get one specific person on board. But like I said, they've had a couple of people who do live outside the city limits who have expressed interest. And there's 2 members who are on the board now who do live outside the city limits, and their terms don't expire anytime soon. And they have, we just filled one opening tonight. And that is with somebody that does live within the city limits, and we didn't have anybody else on the waiting list right now of people who live within the city limits. Unfortunately, applications for those kind of ebb and flow, it seems like, so.
Well, follow up, I guess there are great people that live outside the city, but there are also great people that live inside the city, and I guess I would like to believe that we can find people to serve on our boards and commissions that live inside the city. And we've had the question about employees from outside the city, and I know we've often said that if there are better qualified people outside the city, that we want to have the opportunity to hire the best qualified people, and maybe we need to have the best qualified people on our boards and commissions. But I'd sure prefer that we look inside the city. I guess that's just my bias.
All right, thank you, Bob. Moving on, we have first reading of 2013-55.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri vacating and discontinuing the alley located between Madison and Monroe Streets in the 500 block thereof.
Matt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is kind of a cleanup ordinance, but we discovered an alley that runs through the parking lot of the Miller Performing Arts Center, and this ordinance would vacate that alley but retain a utility easement there. Went through the Public Works and Planning Committee meeting in June and recommended for approval.
Okay, any questions of staff? Seeing none, moving on to first reading of 2013-56.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a grant agreement between the City of Jefferson and the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for construction and construction service related to the airfield lighting electrical vault and airfield lighting control system project at the Jefferson City Memorial Airport.
Matt?
Thank you again. As the clerk indicated, I think the title is pretty clear, but it's basically a grant agreement with MoDOT, and this also pertains to the next two bills listed here on the agenda. But this is the grant agreement to fund those bills. The total for each, if you added them together, is $445,743. As she indicated, the grant's administered through MoDOT, and it's really to replace a voltage regulator and relocate its building above the flood elevation.
Okay, any questions of staff on 56? Seeing none, we'll have first reading of 2013-57.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a contract supplemental agreement with Burns and McDonnell Engineering Company, Incorporated for construction services at the Jefferson City Memorial Airport.
Matt?
Again, it relates to the previous bill that we just discussed, but this is the construction engineering services through Burns and McDonnell for the voltage regulator. The contract value is, the grant value is $99,690, and the city contribution would be just over $6,000 to this agreement.
Okay, any questions on 57 for Matt? Next, we'll have first reading of 2013-58.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with Meyer Electric Company, Incorporated for the airfield lighting electrical vault and airfield lighting control system project.
Matt?
Yes, this is the third part of that agreement. The actual construction contract is with Meyer Electric. The project was bid out. Had, I think, two bidders, and Meyer was the low bid. They're also a local contractor. The cost of the construction contract's just under $375,000. As I indicated before, it's to construct a new voltage regulator and its associated building. It'll be raised out of the floodplain, and it kind of readies us for an upcoming project where the runway and the lighting will be redone next year. Also a large grant-funded project. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions on 58? Okay, moving on, we'll have first reading of 2013-59.
An ordinance amending the code of the City of Jefferson, Missouri pertaining to maximum fines.
Drew?
Conversations with the city prosecutor, as we've raised the minimum fines, the maximum fine becomes less of a fine. And so we'd like to raise the maximum fine from $500 to $1,000. As a constitutional charter city, we have the authority to do that. For example, Columbia's already raised theirs many, many years ago to $1,000.
Okay, any questions of staff on 59? Ralph?
Matt, does this revenue go into general fund?
It goes into the general fund, correct?
Any estimation as to?
I would not estimate that this would bring in very much revenue. I think it's at a fine level that would be reserved for the worst of offenses, possibly some DWIs or assaulting law enforcement officers. I think those would be the two that you might see over it. So I would think thousands of dollars, probably not tens of thousands.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions of Drew on 59? All right, seeing none, we'll have first reading of 2013-60.
An ordinance amending Chapter 1, General Provisions of the Code of the City of Jefferson, Missouri by amending the penalty for violation of disabled parking regulations.
Drew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Several months ago, we rolled up the disabled parking in an accessible or disabled parking spot to $162 as part of raising all the fines up. In hindsight, we determined that the police department had just purchased their fine books, and they primarily write this ticket and very rarely write this ticket. So, frankly, it just didn't cost out for us to order new books for the additional $15 in revenue it would generate. So rather than requiring the officers to remember that fine in particular is incorrect, and having people send in payment through the mail or sending us the wrong amount and mailing it back, we would just ask the council to roll that back to $147, which is its original fine, and we still feel that's an appropriate penalty.
Okay. Any questions for Drew? Rick?
Would this be something we would want to suspend rules on because we have printed material that is inconsistent? And
We did not ask that, but it probably would be probably is the right thing to do, yes.
then in that case, I would move to suspend rules.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second to suspend the rules on 60. Is that correct, Rick? Okay. I would ask our counselor, what's the rules on suspending the rules? Because someone asked me that the other day, and I wasn't quite sure.
If two people request it, then the rules, if two people object, the rules are suspended. So
No, they're actually not suspended. So if there's two people that don't want them suspended, they could keep the body from suspending the rules.
Right.
Correct?
That is correct.
And that's two in this body or two
Yes.
in any body, I'm assuming?
2 in this body.
Okay. 2 out of 10.
2 out of the 9 that are here today.
But I mean, 2 out of 10 would be the rule, though.
Yes.
Be 20%.
Well, any two people could stop it regardless of stop it in this body, regardless of how many people are here.
Okay, gotcha.
It's specifically mentioned as
But
two.
it's simply just 2.
Right.
Okay. All right. There is a motion on the floor to suspend 2013-60 and vote tonight. Is that correct?
That's right.
Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please, on suspending the rules.
You could actually just ask for objections, and if there are
Okay,
none,
is there any objections to suspending the rules?
and then they are suspended.
Is there 2? Seeing none, the rules are officially
Now we third read
suspended
it and
for
go.
2013-60. Third reading, please.
An ordinance amending Chapter 1, General Provisions of the Code of the City of Jefferson, Missouri by amending the penalty for violation of disabled parking regulations.
Okay, I think everyone knows why we're here. Rick, do you have anything to add, sir? Drew, do you have anything to add in the last 30 seconds?
Nothing's changed.
All right, nothing's changed at all. Okay. Any debate by council? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Carroll.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Henry.
Aye.
Hussey.
Aye.
Mahalovich.
Aye.
Prather.
Aye.
Scrivener.
Aye.
Branch.
Aye.
Bray.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Moving on, we'll have third reading of 2013-61.
An ordinance amending Chapter 19, Motor Vehicles and Traffic of the Code of the City of Jefferson, Missouri by adding a new subsection pertaining to mandatory court appearances for excessive speeding.
Drew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've done this a few times when we instituted our court software a couple of years ago. It's been a great benefit and saved a lot of time. But one thing we had to do is for the offenses that require mandatory court appearance, in order for the software to all work together and kick out notices properly, there has to be a separate offense for each mandatory appearance. As we've gone through the process, hopefully we've got them all, but maybe not. This is one that we found we needed to have a separate subsection for the software to work properly. The judge requires anyone who's speeding 25 or over to appear in court. That's what this says. It does not add a new offense. It just puts it separately in the code.
Okay. Any questions, Drew, on 2013-61? Bob.
Not making this a habit, but is this a practice that we're engaging in, and does this need to have the rules suspended as well?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think we're all right.
Okay. Any other questions on 61? Seeing none, we'll move into third reading. I'm sorry, that's first reading. First reading of 2013-62.
An ordinance amending Chapter 19, Motor Vehicles and Traffic of the Code of the City of Jefferson, Missouri pertaining to pedestrians on sidewalks.
Drew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This came about through a citizen concern about how the code was written. The citizen utilized a wheelchair and felt that some of our codes weren't very clear as to whether or not he could use the sidewalk, and it seemed like a reasonable request, so we've moved forward on this. We've changed the definition of pedestrian to not only a person afoot, but also a person utilizing a wheelchair or power wheelchair. And then Chapter 19 is then amended to make it clear that while you can't operate motor vehicles on sidewalks, that ordinance is not intended to apply to wheelchairs or power wheelchairs. And no need to suspend the rules, I don't think.
Okay, Bob, second thoughts? Okay, moving on, we'll have first reading of 63, please.
An ordinance amending Article 11, Paid Holidays of the Personnel Policy Manual by the addition of Section 11-2, Floating Holidays.
Gail.
Thank you, Mayor. Floating holiday hours were included in this, or in the proposed city administrator's budget as a gesture of appreciation for the sacrifices that employees have had to make during a tight economy with no pay increases. The total fiscal cost of this ordinance is $7,500. During the recent budget meetings, some of the council members expressed an interest in this policy going through the administration committee and the full council, since it is a change to the employee benefit package. This did go to the administration committee last week, and it was voted out of the committee 3-1 to come to the full council. The ordinance provides 24.25 hours for fire shift personnel, 16 hours for all other full-time employees, and 8 hours for our 4 part-time with benefit employees. Hours will be scheduled to maintain or to minimize overtime costs, loss of efficiency, and departmental disruptions. The transit employees will all take their holidays on the same day, on President's Day and Columbus Day, because those are both federal and state holidays and have very low ridership on those days, and that will eliminate any need to cover employees when they take the day off, and will ensure no overtime for that. Some of the other stipulations of the ordinance are that the hours must be used in the fiscal year that they are given. There's no carryover of hours from one fiscal year to the next, and there would be no payout of hours if a person leaves employment with the city. This does require funding in the budget for the hours to be given. It is not an automatic benefit from year to year. It would have to be budgeted each year. Also, approving this policy does not automatically make it effective for the next fiscal year. This would still have to be approved in the funding for the fiscal year 14 budget, and obviously it would not affect the fiscal year 13 budget that we're in now. Senior staff does unanimously support this small gesture of appreciation on behalf of the hardworking men and women of our organization, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions to staff on 2013-63? Bob.
Yeah, would you repeat those hours again? I thought I heard you say 24 for the
Yes.
firemen and less for...
The employees on the fire shifts
Okay.
would get 24.25 hours. All other full-time employees would receive 16 hours, and then the part-time with benefit employees would receive 8 hours.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Henry, I saw your hand up.
Gil, and this question could be either for you or Nathan. Could you explain again? I think we kind of got a brief explanation, but could you explain again exactly where the number the $7,000 comes from as far as cost?
Sure. In all of the departments, people would only be allowed to take those days if there is coverage to cover them, so that no overtime costs would incur. However, in the fire department, we still have like step-up pay. We still have to have minimum manning strength of employees each shift. So there could be some costs. Maximum cost is $7,500. For example, if we have a captain who takes their day off, then we would have a driver step up to the captain spot and a firefighter step up to the driver spot. So it's really that step-up pay primarily is what is included there.
Mr. Hendry.
So basically, across the board with the other departments, there's no cost involved at all with doing this?
Right. There's no funds were budgeted for any city department other than the fire department.
Thank you.
Carlos?
And the police, do they work 8 hours or 10 hours?
They work 4 10-hour shifts a week.
So how would they, I don't see 20 in here. I see 24 for the, 24 and a quarter for fire and 16 for regular employees. How would that break down for police if they do 10-hour shifts?
Police would get, they could do a shift and a half if they want to do it that way, or they could do an 8-hour shift and use 2 hours of vacation also. So they would get 16 hours out of their 40 hours in a work week, just like all other full-time employees.
Okay, Mr. Bray?
How many city employees does this affect? Or how many city employees are there?
We have about 400 full-time employees, and then we have 4 part-time with benefit employees.
I've tried to calculate what this would cost the city, and every time I run my numbers, I come up with a lot more than 7,500. So that just doesn't make sense to me. Is there going to be? I guess there's going to be a loss of production. Would you agree that there is a loss of production in this bill?
Did you want to address that?
I will. I think you mean productivity. And, I think I sent some stuff to the council. There's been a lot of studies on that issue lately. All the studies indicate that, in fact, productivity will go up as a result of increasing the vacation time. And I would point out that, we did some math on it, and the total time that's being given out is less than 1% of the amount of time that employees already work. And so even if you consider that to be lost productivity, it's insignificant. But as I say, the science goes the other way.
Bob?
Would you explain the differential between the hours that will be available to fire personnel and other employees? 24 and a half or 24 and a quarter versus 16.
Sure. We originally looked at 16 hours for all full-time employees and 8 hours for the part-time with benefit employees. However, the 16 hours would not give the firefighters, those on staff, on shift, at least one full shift off. They also work more hours in a year, so we felt as though they should get more hours. If you break down the 24 and a quarter hours compared to the total hours that they work in a year, they would get about 0.8% of their time off. For the other employees, for 16 hours, they would get about 0.7% of their time off. So I realize it's a little bit of a discrepancy, but we feel as though the firefighters should get at least a full shift.
Rick?
I want to go back to the science of productivity for a minute here. I don't know that I buy into that science. We do a fair bit of looking at productivity, and we have companies that sell skills, and they count for every dollar they sell.
And Rick, I'm sorry, could you explain to the viewers at home, when you say we, who you work for?
Well, I work for Lynn State Technical College, and we have technicians that are hired by companies that their job is to sell those skills of our technicians. They count every hour that these people are productive. I talked to a person out of Topeka that hired our technicians. They said they expect to sell 85% of their time. 15% to travel, other things. So there is a real cost in the real world to doing what I think is commonly done in other sectors. So I don't know that I buy the assertion that it really doesn't have a cost to the city. I don't know how you calculate it, but I think there's a real cost, and I think it's almost a, I dare say this word, an insult to your own employees, that we're not valuing their productivity well enough to say it doesn't have a cost. And if we kind of put in the language here that we're going to minimize the loss of efficiency, so we're already admitting that there's something going on here within the language. So I don't buy the fact that there's not a loss in productivity. I don't buy the fact that there's not a real cost to the city. And I don't feel like this issue has been properly vetted. As a matter of fact, why is it all of a sudden we had an emergency meeting or to vet this issue and have it come out in a committee before us?
Okay, any other questions of staff on 2013-63? Carrie?
Well, to address and answer some of those questions, being the chair of admin, because it came back to administration committee, is that the council asked to have it put back there. And I like the debate with the 10 of us. I think that's a good way to discuss it, the way you're talking. But it did go back to committee at the suggestion of the council. And I see your point, because you make a very valid point, Councilman Mihalovich. I think when we're looking at this in the budget, really what we're really saying is it doesn't cost extra. The person's salary is going to make X number of dollars, whether or not we choose to give them the 8 hours or 16 hours, however many hours off, 2 days off. It doesn't change our number in what's budgeted for their salary. We don't have to add, say, whatever that, if they typically make X $1,000, we don't have to add that and then the city add that into the budget. The number that it would cost us is only due to the overtime and the other departments that are requiring us that there is a different hard cost to it. So, and you make some good points. So I don't want it to be portrayed as if we're not valuing what the employees, the work that they would be doing in this day or two that they would be having off. If they took it all off in one day, then it's a different story. That's why the floating aspect works. But we don't have to add the hours onto the cost. Thank you.
Gail, one thing I would like to see, and it might be something for Bill, I know Bill had to leave, exactly how we came up with the 7,500 and all of the costs associated with that. Because I'm assuming I've had some council people ask me in the last few days whether or not that was just simply hourly. Doesn't include pension. Obviously, there's pension involved with the firemen and their pension. So, if you could please get that to us by next Monday, that would be great.
Sure.
Rick.
Well, let me remind the council that the reason why it was referred back to committee is because it showed up as a line item in a budget. Now, I have the question for the city administrator that, were you projecting that if we passed the budget with your 7,500, did you make the assumption that policy was going to be altered to allow it to be enacted?
No, I did not. In fact, I got asked that question at one of the council meetings, and my answer was that it would have required additional information, and that was the reason why the council voted, or the budget committee voted, to send it back to the administration committee so that policy would be enacted at the same time.
That council meeting was
That was at the budget meeting.
Okay. All right. Any other, hate to say debate because it's in 2 weeks. I don't think we're voting on this tonight. Any other questions of staff? Gail, you understand what I was asking for? Is there anything else that the council would like to see from staff? If there is, by all means, let them know that, because in a couple weeks we'll be looking at this. All right. Moving on to 2013-64. Mr. Hilpert.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a development agreement with Roar Real Estate 2, LLC, and James R. Morris.
Drew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the contract of the city's end of the contract that Missy spoke about a few moments ago. and kind of answers Councilman Graham's question about what they're asking for from the city. There's one thing to note is that RDL is contingent on the Rohr and Morris LLC coming to agreement with the chamber to purchase the property. So that's step one. But then, assuming that they do that, the city and the county would agree to cost share on the extension of the sewer. So we would run sewer to the property line, and that's really estimated to be only about $16,000. Could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less, but it's in that ballpark. I'll have next meeting forthcoming an agreement with the county where we talk about it, but we'll split that cost evenly. And in exchange for that sewer, Morris agrees that they'll construct their manufacturing building that estimate about $3 million with a goal of $4 million within 3 years. They will employ 20 employees at least within 1 year with a goal of 41 or more. And that's kind of phase one of this agreement. Phase two of the agreement is that if within 3 years Morris feels like they're doing well enough that they need rail spur extension, the city and the county agree to bring the Alpala spur extension down to Rohr's property. And that costs an estimation of around $100,000 according to the county's cost estimates. We would share that cost. After we're done constructing it, it would become property of the county, and they would maintain it after that. In exchange for that, Morris will throw 20 cents per square foot into the equation. So I think it comes out to around $78,000 that they'll put toward that. The $100,000 is on top, is our end. The $70,000 comes from them. The clawback is that they would repay the cost of this, that Morris will repay the cost of the spur if they fail to construct the building and hire the additional employees. I think that covers our end of the agreement. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Drew at this time on 2013-64? All right, seeing none, we will move into bills pending. We'll have third reading of 2013-44, please.
An ordinance amending the code of the city of Jefferson, Missouri pertaining to requirements for sidewalk cafe permits.
Janice, would you like to give us a rundown of this? I think we may have an amendment coming, but.
Yes, thank you. As you know, there were complaints about the sidewalk cafe customers littering the sidewalk. That caused the staff to review the permit ordinance, and out of that review came a suggestion that the permit holders be required to sweep the area daily, provide trash containers, have insurance at a minimum amount, and also cause permits to be issued annually so that all of those items could be enforced. And I understand that Councilman Prather has a substitute.
Rick.
I'd like to amend it to have a minimum of $500,000 requirement for the insurance. Can you restate that?
Sure. I think the substitute was handed out, but just as a motion, I think it would be to amend it to have at least $500,000 in insurance rather than $300,000.
Okay, so the amendment would be from 300 to 500, correct? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Rick. Okay, there's a motion to amend 2013-44 from 300 to 500,000. Mr. Drew.
Just to give a tad bit of history on that, that number had kicked around back and forth, and I know that it came to the council at one time and went back down for a bit more study, and I think Councilman Prather took the lead on that somewhat and queried most of the, I think maybe all but two or maybe all of them at this point, and they all had at least $500,000 in insurance. And that would be, of course, is the law people, we like to have as much as possible, but certainly 500,000 seems like a practical number that I think they would want as a business owner anyway.
Okay. Discussion on the amendment. Seeing none, roll call, please.
Branch.
Aye.
Bray.
Aye.
Carroll.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Henry.
Aye.
Hussey.
Aye.
Mahalovich.
Aye.
Prather.
Aye.
Scrivener.
Aye.
Motion passes. Now we'll be looking at 2013-44 as amended. Bob.
We heard testimony earlier questioning why we would single out the this particular industry, sidewalk cafe restaurants. And I guess my question would be for you, Drew, and maybe Janice. What about the issue of liability that the city? What is the risk, the comparative risk of something like sidewalk cafes versus restaurants? Are we using good practice here, or are we discriminating?
Well, unfortunately, the answer is that we don't allow sidewalk usage other than sidewalk permit. It just occurs, and we don't stop it. That's not a good practice.
No, it's not a good
really, if the city intends to actually allow sidewalk sales and use of sidewalks, then we probably ought to examine that issue. But it's not permitted now. It just occurs.
Carrie.
I think sometimes things like that have been going on forever for, 30, 40 years, however, probably longer than that, sidewalk sales and that sort of thing, have occurred without really any need for the government to come in and regulate because they've been smooth. And I think in this case, the reason that sidewalk cafes came up, which although we absolutely love them, I mean, they're an asset, they're a huge asset to the downtown and other areas, and people love them, and we want to encourage more of them, is the issues that kind of came about because of that, such as the trash, and how do we notify the business owner, because it currently falls on the property owner, not the business owner. So this way we can say to that business, please pick up the trash. Really, I think trash is really what drove this, and if there had been any issues, which I haven't heard of any yet, although it might be something to look at committee if we need to regulate other sidewalk issues, certainly, and maybe bring it up to the downtown association. I'm completely open to that. But I think trash is what brought it up. And to be honest, sweeping the sidewalk every day, although it sounds the most simple thing you'd ever think, I would love to be able to regulate all the businesses and say you sweep it every day. I would love that more than anything. I find myself picking up around me, and I know others do as well. So it sounds simple enough, but it just really gets it into the hands of the business. And I think, too, and I know Phil Califf had a good point about, well, I guess what I wondered, something that he brought up made me wonder, since they're serving food, that perhaps they're needing that permit because maybe the city has to kind of, let's say, regulate how food is served, even if it's outside, or if there's, or it's almost an extension of what they're serving. It seems like the rules are a little different when it comes to food, beverage, and of course with alcohol, as it would be compared with, let's say, just selling an item. So would that kind of answer his question or concern a little bit?
I mean, you're encouraging people to come stay on the sidewalk for extended periods of time as the food is served and alcohol is served. So there's certainly a greater risk anytime you're serving alcohol on city property, which is what sidewalks are. So yeah, I think there's certainly a difference, but there's still usage, so it's something for the council to consider, I think.
Okay, any other questions on, 2013-44? Rick?
Drew, are you recommending that we review the ordinances relative to sidewalk sales and such downtown?
Yes.
What was that, sir?
Yes.
And I think I might be ready to vote on this tonight, but I think that we ought to make that a part of an agenda item for the appropriate committee.
Yeah, I would not tie those two things together. I think it's perfectly fine to move forward with this. You have something of a template when you talk about sidewalk sales and such.
Just so I understand correctly, you're saying we should, you think we should look at those also?
Yeah.
Okay, Ken?
Well, I guess my question would be, would it be wise to still package them together? I understand they're different, but ultimately what you're getting at is a business that is choosing to also extend their business out to the sidewalk regardless of what they choose to do. And so is it wise, you think, to distinguish between whether or not you're serving food and beverage versus if you're extending tables out there for the sale of product that may not be those items. I guess I'm kind of wondering, if we're going to extend it to other businesses, then why the distinction that separates them into different bills and different ordinances?
That may well be the case. I guess my thought as I sit here today is that if you move forward with this, you've got something of a template to work with in the future. You're probably going to have similar issues, trash in the area. You know, as a sidewalk sale, you probably don't get that much, but on the other hand, you might. So there's certainly similar issues. Using this as a template to move forward, I think, is a good plan.
I think our administrator had something to say.
Well, I was just going to say that there's a huge difference between the two in the duration. You know, the sidewalk sales, we don't actually allow people to have display merchandise out on the sidewalks on a regular basis, and we have cited people, you know, for that. But the sidewalk sales, they put the merchandise out during the day, and it comes in, goes back into their store at night, so the sidewalk returns to its original condition. While as the cafes essentially are using city property as their own premises, and those tables and chairs and everything else remains out there 24/7.
Bob.
Yeah, my question wasn't to suggest that we needed to regulate sidewalk sales, but my question, I guess, was more of one of comparative risk and whether or not, you know, we were singling out an industry or what have you. I would say, I agree with your comment about a template and about, I think we should vote tonight irregardless, and then if the issue of the other sales that are going on needs to be addressed, it can be addressed either with a separate ordinance or amending this ordinance later on. But I think we ought to act on tonight's bill because there's been a ton of work that's gone on, and this thing has drug on for a very, very, very long time, and let's get it behind us.
Carrie.
And I wanted to mention, too, for those really in the public who might see this for the first time this evening or perhaps read the article, hopefully there'll be a follow-up article and they might read that for the first time, that I'd want to make it really clear that we worked with the restaurants on this. It was not really a council-led effort. It was really a downtown merchants-led effort where, you know, how do we handle the trash? Well, you know, we worked together on that. And we had input, we had emails, we had people come to the committee meetings. So this has kind of been going on for like 6 months, but we even pulled it when there was one restaurant who said, I don't have that much liability. Then they realized actually they had double what we were asking for. So we actually have been working very closely, and nothing came forward that was opposed at all. And I think Mr. Califf has good points, but from what I've seen, there's really been support, and we've made it we've very carefully worked with all of them because this is something we do want to encourage. So it might sound like, oh, you're regulating. Well, really, we're trying to work together to make it something that we can all want to enjoy together. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions or debate on 2013-44 as amended? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Graham,
Aye.
Henry,
Aye.
Hussey,
Aye.
Mahalovich,
Aye.
Prather, Scrivener,
Aye.
Branch,
Aye.
Bray,
Aye.
Carroll.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we'll have third reading of 2013-45.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a non-binding memorandum of understanding for a future development agreement for Mission Drive with Arthur Brown et al.
Bob.
Mr. Mayor, I've had several council members come to me and express concern that they wanted a little more time to have some questions answered and so forth, and have asked me if I would put this on the informal calendar as sponsor of the bill, and that's what I'd like to do.
Okay, I think it would stay there unless otherwise. Do we need to do anything else as far as introduction of the bill, Drew?
No.
Okay. Unless there's debate on that issue, that will stay on the informal calendar until Councilman Scrivener or another councilman decides to take it off. Next, we'll move into 2013-46.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with Alex Mastrianis for the sale of real estate.
And she hit it, right? She got it. All right, I will call on Councilwoman Carroll as the sponsor of that bill.
I'll place that on the informal calendar, but I know by doing that, there's no discussion, but I did want Drew to give us a brief reason why with MoDOT looking at that and kind of where we're at. Thank you.
Drew?
Sure.
Thank you, Carol.
MoDOT had some inquiries about our disposal of the property, and they've had some changeover in employees since our original permission to sell, and they've got some concerns about it, and we need to go through the process again if this is how we want to proceed. There was an appraisal done. We do need to provide some additional information. What happens is MoDOT has to get permission from the FTA, and then they may have some regulations about how we dispose of the money. So it could well be that if we sell it to Alex or someone else in the private industry, that money will have to be refunded to transit. So I believe ultimately we would get permission for it. There are some other options as well that the council could consider.
Okay, Carrie?
Do you have a timeline at all for what MoDOT's work would be?
I'm not real sure. I got an email today with what they specifically need, and it didn't look like a tremendous amount of work.
Okay.
So I don't know, because in part they're dealing with the FTA, so I'm not sure how fast they can turn it around. Hopefully before the bill would die, though.
Okay. If you happen to get something before, this will come back in 2 weeks. If
Sure.
you get something in the meantime, you could email it to the council.
We'll certainly do
Okay,
that.
Thank you.
And just for the viewers at home, I asked the clerk, and just to make sure when a bill goes on the informal calendar, it can stay on there for up to 3 meetings after this one. So anyone that's playing trivia at home tonight on how all this stuff works. Okay, next we've already talked about 2013-47. We'll move into 2013-48. Third reading, please.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for Metropolitan Transportation Planning Services for the period of November 1, 2013 to October 31, 2014, reflecting funds as approved in the fiscal year 2014 Unified Planning Work Program.
Janice.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is our transportation planning grant agreement with Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission. This is the 11th year we've had this agreement that funds the Capital Area MPO planning program. The total amount of the planning agreement is $148,200. That represents the federal share. That requires a local match of $37,050. For a total work program of $185,250. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of staff on 2013-48? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Henry.
Aye.
Hussey.
Aye.
Mahalovich.
Aye.
Prather.
Aye.
Scrivener.
Aye.
Branch. Bray.
Aye.
Carroll.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next we have third reading of 2013-49.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with Aplex Incorporated for the 1200 to 1300 block Moreland Avenue Neighborhood Improvement Program project.
Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As clerk indicated, this is for the Moreland Avenue Neighborhood Improvement Project, which will reconstruct the sidewalk and curb and gutter on these 2 blocks of Moreland Avenue. The contract's with Aplex Inc., and they are a local contractor who's done work for the city before and done a good job. The total contract value is $206,103, and the neighborhood is contributing $10 a running foot, so about $20,000 of the project. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Matt on 2013-49?
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir, Mr.
Of
Carlos.
course, my favorite question. Were they the lowest bid?
They were the lowest bid.
They were?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
We can get you you can just get you a card to hold that up every meeting.
I'll start remembering.
Matt, don't let me forget, after this meeting, I have a sidewalk question that came up in our neighborhood. Someone asked me, utilities doing some work. I want to ask you something about that after the meeting. Okay, any other discussion on 2013-49? Seeing none, debate? Roll call, please.
Hussey.
Aye.
Mahalovich.
Aye.
Prather.
Aye.
Scrivener.
Aye.
Branch.
Aye.
Bray.
Aye.
Carroll.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Henry.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we'll have third reading of 2013-50.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri declaring certain property to be surplus and authorizing the disposal of said property.
All right, Mr. Betts is not here. Filling in is our administrator, Mr. Nicholas.
Yes, this is a bill we do every year, declaring property surplus, and then it'll be auctioned at the city auction or otherwise disposed of. And I think the council has the complete list of all the property.
Okay. Any questions of Nathan on 2013-50? Seeing none, debate. Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mahalovich.
Aye.
Prather.
Aye.
Scrivener.
Aye.
Branch.
Aye.
Bray.
Aye.
Carroll.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Henry.
Aye.
Hussey.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we'll have third reading of 2013-51.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, adopting a budget and personnel classification plan for the city for the period of November 1, 2013 to October 31, 2014, and appropriating money in the city treasury to pay the cost of operating the city government during that period in accordance with the budget.
Mr. Bray.
Mayor, I would like to move to have this placed on the informal calendar.
Okay, and I think you're doing that in lieu of Mr. Schulte, who's not here tonight.
As vice chair of the Finance Committee, I make such a motion in his absence.
I second that motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded this be placed on the informal calendar. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Let's see, we've already covered. Clerk, want to make sure we did have third reading of 2013-52 sales tax levy from earlier. Okay. Moving down to number 19. I have 3 people signed up. I have a Mr. Chris. What's that? Gradicky. All right. Chris, welcome to City Hall. You have 3 minutes. Please give us your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. My name is Chris Gradicky. I'm at 1129 East McCarty Street. Mr. Mayor and members of the council, I want to thank the council for hearing our concern regarding a problem with a neighbor, landlord in the community, neighbor/landlord. I am representing my 2 companies, Third Generation Properties and Advantage Property Management of 1129 East McCarty. We're contract companies that own and manage residential rental property for owners in Jefferson City. Part of our mission is making and keeping good neighbors within the city and counties, especially in the Old Town District, that need more of a focus sometimes, I believe. Because our business resides, our business and our properties reside or are located in Old Town, I'm especially interested, even though I don't personally reside in the Old Town District. I've come along with several residents of the 1200 block of Cottage Lane this evening, which are 2 of those are homeowners. Myself, I own 1217 and 1219. These residents are of the 1200 block of Cottage are prepared to answer questions if the council so desires. We hope that the council can offer us some additional suggestions. The police department and code enforcement have contributed. There's a concern about a certain neighbor at 1221 that has made life miserable for the people of Cottage Lane, including my tenants and the property owners. The city administration and code enforcement, the police department, have been very helpful in investigating this matter, especially Sergeant Methane. I come as a concerned property owner. Thank you very much.
Okay, any questions of our speaker? Mr. Henry.
Yes, sir. First off, we just like to thank you for being here and expressing your concern in that regard.
Thank you, sir.
Could you just give maybe a brief example of what do you mean by this particular neighbor? What's the issue?
Excuse me, Chris, I would ask that you not mention the neighbor by name.
Oh,
if you
absolutely.
Don't mind.
Absolutely. This particular person is causing harassment to the neighbors living on the street, and I really don't prefer to go into detail on those issues, but also are preventing me from re-renting my home at 1219 Cottage Lane by rude and insulting remarks to prospective renters. They're putting trash in my yard, including mattresses, tires, and personal sanitary items. They have stored items after code enforcement has told them to clean up, I guess the property owner, and they're putting them in my storage building in my backyard. So that's those are the issues at hand.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henry.
Mr. Bray.
Excuse me, sir?
Chris, another question here, guy.
I picked up the map and looked to see where you are.
Okay.
And I live right by there, and I drive through there several times a day on a regular work day. Are you located in the close proximity to Clark and East McCarty?
Yes, my business is located there, catty corner from IC.
I'd be happy to stop in and visit with you, and maybe eventually do some door-to-door down there.
That would be most welcome. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Chris? Chris, I would also like to go ahead, Bob.
You know, Chris, I sympathize with you very much. There's probably not anything that's more frustrating than bad neighbors, because there's oftentimes not a lot you can do about it. But you did say that code enforcement and the police department had worked very well with you, but apparently and I will have some questions for Janice later, but what if you're just saying that it hasn't been effective and that it needs to be something beyond what's been done so far? Is that why?
Well, I'm certainly not impugning their work, but I just basically come for some additional suggestions on what can be done, being ignorant to particular codes regarding certain things. I deal with a lot of tenant and landlord issues, codes that I'm familiar with per state statutes, but this is a first one to me when a landlord tells one of my tenants that after calling them that there's nothing they can do. They're paying their rent, and he doesn't have to live in the neighborhood, so he's not going to do anything about it. So that's primarily, personally, as a landlord of multiple properties in this area, I would take a great concern if I had a tenant that was doing these things.
I've had similar situations on the west side, not me personally, but folks that have contacted me with problems. And it seems to me that at times that our codes are just not effective. But when you start digging in and trying to make adjustments to them, you find that there's a lot of unintended consequences that can result too. So, but you've at least gotten my attention, and I suspect you've gotten the attention of all 10 folks here, or 9 tonight. But I do sympathize with you.
Sure, and thank you, sir. And I want to additionally add, I'm here on behalf of them, and
Sure.
really not myself, because I'm concerned about not only my tenants, but the neighborhood in general.
Thank you.
And Old Town. Thank you.
Chris, thanks for being here tonight. Appreciate your input. Next, I have Mr. Glover Brown, under 19. Glover, welcome. For the record, please state your name and address, please.
Glover Brown, 1700 Valley High Road, Jefferson City. I'd like to preface my comments this evening, and this is about the Bill 2013-45. I'd like to start out by saying quickly that this is very emotional for me. I never thought that I would reach the age where I could say and look back that I saw my first black president. I never thought that I would see historically in Jefferson City, we're looking at 2 minority council members in Jefferson City. This is truly historic. Mr. Mayor, you know that in one of the previous council meetings, you had acknowledged your understanding of some trepidations that had occurred with my family back in the 50s. That was never driven home so clearly than in the last few months. I've been doing a genealogy on our family. We've been in Jefferson City since the late 1700s. We were here before the state of Missouri. We were here before the city of Jefferson. And so I would like to just impress on all the councilmen why this is so emotional for me and my family. Knowing the diversity and the adversity that we had to go through in the early 50s, this is a monumental occasion for us to be able to stand in the forefront of something that may have a direct impact on the future growth and the future economic development for Jefferson City. This is so historic that we've been mentioned of this fact from people as far away as St. Louis, Missouri. And so this is one reason why this is so tantamount to our family. Secondly, to all the landowners, the Rackers and the Rodemans, the Webbs and the Browns, we feel that this is a good opportunity for the city of Jefferson. And it was very inspiring to us to know that we had a lead role and that we had been inspiring to start a dialogue not only with the city of Jefferson, but with the county of Cole. I can't tell you how much this has impacted our family. Again, we think this is a good deal for the city. We think this is a good deal for the county. We think the city knows this is a good deal too. But with Mr. Scrivener putting this on the informal calendar, we hope that we can take this opportunity to educate not only the council, but the citizens of Jefferson City of the benefits to this memorandum of understanding. And Mr. Scrivener, I hope you will give us the opportunity to do that, and we look forward to working with you. I also would like to take this time to acknowledge to the council and to the mayor of the outstanding staff that you have that represents you. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Drew Hilbert for all the work that he shared with us and the time that he's given us. And I'm always hailing the attributes of Miss McMillan. I think you have a wonderful staff person in Miss McMillan, in that she's very knowledgeable about her job. As I described her in a past meeting, it's like when you go to a nice restaurant and you're talking and your glass is always full, but you never saw the server come and fill your glass. That's the way Miss McMillan is about her job. She's very efficient, she's very professional, and when she walks away, you've gotten everything you wanted and you forgot that you even asked for it. So on that behalf, I'd like to say thank you to Mr. Hilbert and to Miss McMillan. And thank you, Mr. Mayor, for giving me this opportunity. And I'm hoping that in the few weeks to come that we can enlighten the council members, those who are still not clear on what the memorandum of understanding is, and we hope that we can do some educating from the citizen standpoint so that they can have a better knowledge of what it is. And again, we're very thankful that we were able to be a part, and hopefully to be a part, of the future growth and economic development of Jefferson City. So on behalf of the consortium, I'd like to say thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Glover. Any questions for Mr. Brown? Okay, moving on, Leonard Steinman I have underneath number 19. Leonard, welcome.
Leonard Steinman, 110 North Lincoln. Concerning about the courts in the daytime, I would like to have you think about this. As an employer, sometimes I have people that I hire that are a little different. They have problems. I have problems. Everybody has problems. But think about the employers throughout the city, the county, and the state that come in here, and they have to come in during the daytime, so they take off anywhere from 4 hours to 8 hours productivity time for the employer. Not only that, they lose the revenue that is paid in taxes to the county, the state, and the city. Not only that, there's no parking. They have to go all over the place. I've seen them park as far as 3.5 blocks away to come in here to go to court. Now, you're saving $30,000 to $50,000 a year by having the court in the daytime. But you're forgetting the productivity taxes that you're losing is over $190,000 a year that I have figured up. That's on what I have figured up. I would like you to consider this, because when an employer expects somebody to be there and they're in court during the daytime, that means their productivity in the city and the county has went down 1%. That's a lot. Not only that, you figure that's right at 78 cents per hour that they miss, plus they have to pay for child care during the daytime, plus they have to figure a way to come to work. And the employer, after 3 or 4 times, they give them no job no more. And then you lose revenue completely for everybody. Thank you.
All right, any questions of Mr. Steinman? Okay, moving on to number 20, council and staff discussion of presentation topics. Mr. Hilbert.
There's 2 things on Mr. Steinman's item. I hope we've never said we're saving $30,000 to $50,000 in a court cost to the city. I think it's around $3,000 to $5,000 probably tops. Secondly, really think it's the judge's decision anyway, so even if the council wanted him to go back to night court, I'm not sure they have the ability to set it. I guess you could not make the room available, but it's really the judge's decision.
You're trying to tell us that the judge rules the court? And that we don't actually have
that's a good phrase.
Say so what time it is?
I think that's probably right.
Okay. Okay, council and staff discussion on presentation topics. Mr. Bob.
I guess I would I'd commend Leonard. I'll say one thing for him. He's always thinking, and that is a pretty thoughtful thing to consider the hardship for people who have to come to court during the daytime if they have a daytime job. So I commend him on that. But what I really wanted to do is ask Janice, I guess, or if there's someone here as a representative of the police department tonight, what is the ongoing issue here that we seem to have a hard time to get a handle around it, and is there anything that we as a council can do to assist this? You know, you and I have had conversation about these types of situations before, and I was hoping that maybe we'd come up with a solution, but apparently even that doesn't work.
Before you try to answer that, do you feel comfortable answering that tonight, or would you rather get back to us on that?
Well, just let me say that code enforcement and the police department work closely together in situations like this. And so if given an opportunity to work this situation, we may be able to come up with some ideas on how to approach the neighborhood. You know, but there are some difficult situations out there, and some individuals do not make good neighbors, but I'll just leave it at that.
Well, and I guess from a generic standpoint, not even this specific issue, but there have been issues around the community that sound very similar to what we just heard tonight.
Yes.
And that are ongoing issues. And I guess I would be very much interested in, as a council, what can we do to equip you and the police department so that these things don't go on for months and months and months and months? Because that's not a good situation.
Thank you. We'll definitely be discussing those situations.
Mr. Graham.
So I guess would that be like some type of ordinance change or something like that you're thinking, Councilman Scrivener?
At this point, I'm not sure, but yes, I would think an ordinance, I think that part of what ends up happening is there are 2 or 3 things, at least, that I've found in trying to understand these situations before. One is determining, the speaker mentioned mattresses ended up on his property. Well, if no one sees who actually put the mattress there, you got a pretty good idea who did it, but you don't have any evidence who did it. There's administrative things, you got to go through these administrative processes. You have to post and do things like that. So I guess I had proposed a hardening, I guess, of penalties for people that repeatedly do that sort of thing. But again, the difficulty is to determine who's done it. So I'm just asking Ms. McMillan if there are tools that she thinks would assist them in addressing these issues and addressing them more effectively and more timely, then I'm willing to consider it. But yes, long answer for a short question, an ordinance is what I was thinking.
And I would support that too.
Okay. Anything else underneath number 20 at all? Seeing none, we'll move on to 21. Any new business to bring before the community tonight? 22, any unfinished business? 23, at this point in time, we'll entertain a motion to approve closed session meetings or closed session minutes from the August 5th closed session. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Seeing none, roll call, please.
Branch.
Aye.
Bray.
Aye.
Carroll.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Henry.
Aye.
Hussey.
Aye.
Mahalovich.
Aye.
Prather.
Aye.
Scrivener.
Aye.
At this point in time, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is successful. We are adjourned. Thank you for watching tonight.